بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم لا سهلا إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا ربي زدني علما اللهم انفعني بما علمتني وعلمني ما ينفعني ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. Yesterday, Alhamdulillah, we started Surah Al-Ma'arij, and I spent quite a bit of time going over just a recap of all of the rules that we learned in the first 3 weeks, and then I spent the rest of the lesson just going through the first ayah of this surah and highlighting the various rules and basically systematically going through them one by one. So we didn't just do it blindly. We went through each rule one by one, and we did it in a systematic way, so that we ensured that nothing got left out. Um, so that was the second thing we did. We also learned two new rules. We learned the rule of the mad, which is whenever there's a stretch letter followed by the letter Hamza or Alif, then you will stretch that stretch letter times 3. So 3 times a normal stretch, it would be stretched. So we saw that on this scene over here, that we stretch it times by 3 because it's a normal stretch letter, Fatha bif Alif, followed by the letter Hamza. And we mentioned that with regards to the mud, you will always see the little sign above the stretch letter. So it would either look like this or it would look like a squiggly line. So you will always know whenever there's a mud with this Quran and with other Qurans as well. You'll see like a little line above the letter. The other rule we went through was we started going through the stopping rules. We mentioned one thing regarding the first rule of the stopping rules. So I'll just write it down again. So stopping rules, because there are going to be more. So the first thing that we learned was whenever we stop on a word, we turn the vowel on the last letter into a sakin. Okay, so that was the first of the stopping rules, and we saw that with the ayn. The ayn has the double vowel underneath it, but we turned it into a sakin, and we said that we would join the qaf to the ayn, and that's how we would read it. So that's what we went through yesterday. We went through a lot of things yesterday. It was quite an intense lesson, I would say, but alhamdulillah, I think it was quite beneficial. So inshallah, hopefully everyone is feeling okay. Hopefully everyone got some practice. The ones who sent me voice notes, I have responded to you. So alhamdulillah. So what we'll do, the plan for all of today's class is we will just continue going on through this surah, inshallah. That's going to be the plan for today. We will go through, inshallah, maybe we'll go through the next 1, 2, 3 lines. So that's going to be the goal for today, is to go through and reach here, inshallah. Okay, so that's the plan for today, and we will learn we'll learn 2 new rules about stopping. So that's going to be the plan. So we'll continue going through these ayat, and I will explain 2 new rules about stopping, inshallah. So that's the plan. So with regards to the method, we mentioned that we need to go through everything. Okay, so let's look at this ayah over here, the second ayah. Actually, what I'll do is I'll do these in red. So let me do them in red. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so with regards to the ayat, we mentioned that before we even attempt to read it, we need to mark every single rule that we can see. Okay, so I mentioned yesterday that it's good to have a checklist of everything, because that way you won't miss anything out. So we'll just put the checklist on the side, just in shorthand. So HL heavy letters, SL stretch letters. And the reason why we do these first is because this is to do with the foundations of Tajweed. Heavy letters and stretch letters, they are the foundations. If you're getting these wrong, then everything else doesn't matter, because these are to do with, major mistakes. If you get these wrong, then you're making the major mistakes. Whereas if you get the other tajweed mistakes wrong, then those are minor mistakes. So it's more important to focus on these first. Then I mentioned joins, and then after that qalqala. But if you can do qalqala automatically without looking at joins, then you can skip the joinings. Ghunna, then nun sakin tanween rules, and within the nun sakin tanween rules, there are 4 categories, or 5 if you count the 2 idghams. Then mim sakin, and the mim sakin is very, very simple. It's just you're looking for any mim sakin followed by ba or mim. And last but not least, difficult letters. So DL, difficult letters, this would be different for everyone, but everything else will be the same. So this is our checklist that we're just going to be using to go through everything. So let's look at this first ayah over here and just mark any heavy letters we can see. So just one by one. The heavy letters, again, quick reminder, kha, sad, dad, ba, dha, ghain, and qaf. And the letter ra when it's got a fatha or a dhamma. And the lam in the word Allah. So lam, kaf, fa, these are fine. Now this ra has a kasra, so it's going to be light. Noon, lam, ya, sin, lam, ha, da, fa, ain, dal, fa, ain. These are all light, so there are no heavy letters in this ayah. Stretched letters. Let's look at anything that's going to be stretched and mark it. So we have with the standing fatha. We have this ra here, which is a kasra before ya sakin. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to rub these out. Rub that out too. Kasra before ya sakin here. And we have this ha here, upside down dhamma. And we have this dal here, which is a fatha before alif. Okay, so that's the stretched letters done. Now look at anything joint again. This is mainly just to look for qalqalas. Okay, so you don't need to do this, but it's a good idea to do it anyway. So this lam is joined to this lam. It will also help to do it because then when you build it up, then again you won't be wasting time reading something and then realizing it's joined to another letter. So in that sense as well, it's also beneficial. You have this lam joined to the ya, and that's about it. Now, there is one thing to note. At the end of the ayah, we have this ayn with the double vowel with the dhammatain. Now, we mentioned yesterday, and I mentioned it again today, with the stopping rule, whenever we stop on a word, we turn the vowel on the last letter into a sakin. So, if we are going to turn this ayn into a ayn with a sakin, then we can also mark that this fa is joined to the ayn. Okay, so we could also mark this because if we are going to stop on this ayn, then technically this fa is also joined to the ayn. Okay, so it's a good idea to mark that as well and just keep a note of it. You don't need to, cross out you don't need to cross it out on your Quran. I would advise you not to do that. Don't cross it out. Don't cross out the vowel from your Quran. Don't do it like how I did it here. Just note that the fa will be joined to the ayn. So don't cross it out, but do just make a mark that you are joining the fa to the ayn. Then qalqalas. So anything that's joined are the letters of qalqala. Qaf, ta, ba, jim, or dal. So this is a lam, this is a ya, this is a ayn. So no qalqalas. Ghunnas. So we're looking for any noon or mim with the shadda. So there aren't any. So there aren't really any ghunnas. Noon sakin tanween. Are there any noon sakins or tanweens? So we don't have any noon sakin tanween here. We have one here on the last letter, on the ayn. We have a tanween on the ayn. Now question, are we going to apply any rules from the noon sakin tanween on this ayn? Yes or no? Just in the chat. Will we look for any rules of noon sakin tanween? If yes, if no, why? Good. Yes, so because it's the end of the ayah, stopping rule, fantastic. Yes, so we're stopping on the ayn here. We're reading it as though it's got a sakin. So we will not apply the stopping rule. So we will not apply the noon sakin tanween rule. Yeah. So noon sakin is done. Mim sakin. Are there any mim sakins? No. Difficult letters. Well, That's up to you. If there are any letters that you find difficult, maybe ayn, then mark that with a little star underneath it. So I'm just going to put a little star next to the difficult letter, just to show that that's how you would mark it. Now that we've marked all the rules, we can go to the next step, which is breaking the ayah down. Again, this is not a huge, it's not a very long ayah, but it's still a good idea to break it down into parts, because that way it becomes easier to read. Okay, so we'll break it down into more manageable parts. So we'll do it 2 words and then 2 words. So 2 sets of 2 words. And now we will just start building it up. So we would read. So again, before you start reading, say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. If you don't know how to say that, then just make a dua to Allah. Oh Allah, I seek your protection from shaitan. And then say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So this would be lil ka fi lil kafi ri lil kafiri na lil kafirina lil kafirina lil kafirina lay lil kafirina laysa lil kafirina laysa lil kafirina laysa lil kafirina laysa. And the method is you have to repeat that 7 times until you get it correctly 7 times in a row. So if you're stuttering or if you're pausing between letters or between the 2 words, or if you're reading something incorrectly, then it does not count. It has to be 7 times in a row, fluently and correctly. Okay. Now that might take time for people. It might be instant for others. Again, but it's important to not skip it, and it's important to not rush. It's important to not, do something that you can't do, meaning don't move on until you're good with this part. Okay. Because our goal is not to, read the entire Quran. Our goal is not to reach the end of the page. Our goal is that whatever we read, we are confident we read it correctly. Okay, so keep that in mind always, that your goal is not to reach the end of the page. Your goal is that whatever words you read, you've read it to the best of your ability. Okay, so the method, repeat that until you get it right 7 times in a row, until you're confident with it and you can read it fluently. Once you've done that, then you would move on to the next half. So we would read it like this. So la hu lahu da lahu da, and this fa is joined to the ain. Fi' lahu dafi' lahu dafi' lahu dafi' lahu dafi' lahu dafi' lahu dafi' lahu dafi'. And once you've got it correct 7 times in a row, and again, you might be struggling. If ayn is a difficult letter, you might be struggling with this, and that's completely fine. If you're struggling, it's okay. It means you just need to keep practicing it until you feel that you've done your best with it. Okay, until you feel like you're getting it as best as you can. Obviously, the ayn is a difficult letter, and if you struggle with its pronunciation, it won't be perfect after 1 day. It won't be perfect after 2 days. It won't be perfect after a week or 2 weeks. It'll take time, but as long as if you feel like you're getting it to the best you absolutely can, that's when you will move on. Yeah. So once you've done it 7 times in a row, all fluently and correctly, then read both of them together. And again, you have to try and get as fluent as you can, making sure you make no mistakes. And this is where mistakes will occur when you're joining the 2 things together. What will tend to happen is you will stretch something that shouldn't be stretched, or you might pause for too long. So it's going to be like this. Lil kafirina laysa lahu dafi'. Lil kafirina laysa lahu dafi'. Lil kafirina laysa lahu dafi'. Now, the place where you might make a mistake is over here or over here, because once you get to this stage, you can read the first half correctly and you can read the second half correctly. The mistake that you'll make is most likely going to be where you're joining the two parts together. So you might accidentally stretch the scene. So you might say, لِلْكَافِرِينَ لَيْسَ لَهُ دَافِعٌ. So in that case, I stretched the scene when it should not be stretched. Or you might say, لِلْكَافِرِينَ لَيْسَ لَهُ دَافِعٌ. So you might stretch the lam. Or you might do this as well. You might say, لِلْكَافِرِينَ لَيْسَ لَهُ دَافِعٌ. So what I did there was a bit of a pause between the two words, because you are not used to joining it together. So you might pause for a bit too long. So it might take a few tries to get it all fluent and all correct. But you would do that and read it until you get it right 7 times in a row, meaning avoid any new mistakes and make sure you're reading everything else correctly. Okay. One second with this. Okay, so yeah, so you would repeat this ayah until you get it right 7 times in a row. Now that we've done two ayat, we've done the first ayah and we've done the second ayah. We do not read the third ayah, okay? The method is now we have to go back to the beginning, okay? We have to read from the beginning until this end of the second ayah, okay? Because now that you've read the first ayah and you've read the second ayah and you're confident on both of them, then go back to the beginning and read from the beginning up to here. Okay, so Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. سأل سائل بعذاب واقع للكافرين ليس له دافع. Okay, and again, you might make new mistakes. You might make mistakes on the first ayah. Now that you've put all of your focus on the second ayah, you might make a mistake on the first ayah, and that's fine. If you make a mistake, fix it. Try to see where you went wrong. Maybe you missed out the ghunnah, maybe you didn't make the mad long enough, or maybe you mispronounced a letter like the ayn, or maybe you missed out the ghunnah on the waw. Whatever it is, if you made a mistake, then fix it, read it again, and try it again. And read from the beginning up to here, and do that until you get it right a few times in a row. If you want to do 7, do 7. I would say maybe 7 might be a bit too much. So if you want to bump it down to, if you can get it right 3 times in a row from ayah 1 to ayah 2, then that would be fine. Okay. So does everyone understand what I'm saying at the moment? Once you finish the second ayah, you don't do the third. You have to go all the way back to the beginning and read from 1 to 2. Does that make sense? Just a 1 if it makes sense. A 5 if you have any questions at the moment about the method. Alhamdulillah. So I'm glad everyone does understand this. Now, understanding it is one thing, putting it into practice is another thing. Okay, it's very easy to understand this concept of going back to the beginning, but it's quite hard to put it into practice if you already have a habit of just reading from beginning to end. Okay, we have to change this habit. Okay, this is really, really important to change this habit, because again, you guys have put so much effort into learning the rules. You've put so much effort to learning letter pronunciation. You've put so much effort into all of this thing. But if you don't follow the method now, I won't say it's gone to waste, but I will say that you won't be maximizing your learning. Okay. The best way to maximize your learning is to do whatever makes you uncomfortable. So it's going to make you uncomfortable to go back to the beginning and see that you're still making mistakes. It definitely is going to feel uncomfortable. And coming from someone who did hifz, when you're doing hifz, when you're memorizing the Quran, you always have to go back to whatever you've learned and repeat it over and over and over again. And it's a grueling process. it's a grueling process to always have to go back to the beginning. And then when you see that you make new mistakes, it can be quite frustrating. But you have to be patient with yourself and keep on trying. Okay. So though it is simple in concept, it is difficult to actually put into practice, because you have to live with the fact that you might make new mistakes, or you just have to keep repeating it over and over. You might not feel like you're making progress. So make sure that you take the time. Okay, take the time to always go back to the beginning. And this is why when we were practicing with the words, that I emphasized that the method is super important, that we always go back to the beginning when we're reading the words. And now we're applying this same concept to the Quran, that every time we read a new ayah, we go back to the first one. Okay. And again, this is all just part of the practice that we need to do. So once you've done that, once you've read the first two ayat, then you can start with the third. But we're not going to read the full ayah. We have to find all the rules that we can see. So I'll do this one again in just blue pen. So now we're doing the third ayah, and we're finding any rules we can see. The more you do this, the easier it will become to just find all the rules. So have maybe your cheat sheet ready, or look through your notes, go through them one by one. And these are the rules we're looking at: heavy letters, stretch letters, joinings, qalqalas, ghunnas, nun sakin, tanween, mim sakin, difficult letters. So 8 things. I'll just put GH, ghunna. So heavy letters first of all. So we're looking for kha, sad, dad, ta, dha, ghain, qaf, and ra, and lam in the word Allah. So automatically already we can see the word Allah here. So is this lam light or is this lam heavy? Well, the rule is that whenever we see the word Allah, we have to look at the letter before. If the letter before has a fatha or a dhamma, then the lam will be heavy. And if the letter before has a kasra, then it will be light. So, mashallah, Brother Shahriya, this lam is going to be heavy, because, well, the noon is the letter before it, and the noon has a fatha. So this lam is heavy. I'm just going to rub that out. It wasn't clear. So this lam is heavy. If we carry on, we have a ha, dal, lam, mim, ain, ra. Is this ra heavy or light? Well, it's got a fath, it's got a kasra, so this ra is light. So in this ayah, no heavy letters except for this lam. Stretched letters, anything stretched. Well, we have this standing fatha on the lam, so this lam is also a stretched letter. And we have this ayn is a fatha before alif, so this ayn will be stretched. Everything else is normal. Joinings, anything joined together. Well, we do have this noon joined to this lam, and we have this dal joined to this lam. So this is something else that finding the joinings will help you with, because if you are going to build this ayah up, you might have just looked at this dal and assumed that it's the. You might have just said the, but then you look at the next word and you realize there's a sakin, and then you realize, oh, I need to join the dal to the lam. So just finding everything that's joined is gonna, save you a bit of time. Okay, and it kind of eliminates a bit of doubt, because you might be wondering, okay, is the sakin on the alif or is it on the lam? What's this ya got to do with anything? Well, with this Quran script, we don't do anything with the alif or the ya, because they don't have anything on them. Carrying on, well, this jim here has we'll read it as though it's got a sakin because it's at the end of the ayah, because of the stopping rule. So just a quick reminder, stopping rule: when we stop on a word, we turn the vowel into a sakin. So this jim with the kasra will now be as though it's a jim with a sakin. So we're joining the ra to the jim. So now we found everything that's joined. Now we need to look for qalqalas. Well, this can't be a qalqala because it's a shadda. This is not qalqala because it's the letter lam. Now this jim, this will be a qalqala because the letters of qalqala are qaf, ta, ba, jim, and dal. So if we stop on a jim, then we will apply qalqala at the end of this ayah. So this is why you have to be a little bit careful as well, because qalqala can come at the end of an ayah where you don't really see a sakin. You don't see the sakin, but you can still apply a qalqala on it because of the stopping rule. So just be mindful of that. You can do qalqala and you will find them very often at the end of ayat Okay, so there will be a qalqala on the jim. Now we look for gunna. So any meme or noon with the shadda on it. Well, we see a meme with the shadda. Are we going to apply a gunna on this meme? Yes or no in the chat? If yes, if no, why? I'm curious to see what you guys think. So question, are you applying gunna? On the meme? No, no, fantastic, good. Yeah, we won't apply gunna on the meme. The reason that shadda is there, is because it's from the last ayah. Okay, now this isn't something that I want to mention today. I wasn't planning on mentioning it, but I might as well do it now. You can join ayat together, so you don't have to stop on an ayah. You can join them together. But at this stage of our learning, at this stage, I will not recommend you to join ayat together. It's better to stop and pause on every single ayah at the end of each ayah. But if you were to carry on, so from lil kafirin laysa lahu dafi', if you were to join this ayah with this one, then you will see that this ayn has a tanween followed by the letter mim. So we would apply the idgham with ghunna rule. So if you were to join the two ayat together, then you would do a ghunna on the mim. But because we're not doing that, we don't need to worry about it. So there will not be any ghunna on this mim. Carrying on, there is nothing else. So ghunna is done. Noon sakin tanween. Well, there aren't any noon sakin or tanweens, so we're fine. Mim sakin, there aren't any mim sakins. And difficult letters, well, that's up to you. Whatever you find difficult, mark it with a star. And now that we've marked all the rules, we can break this down into readable, more easier readable parts. So I think we'll just stick with our 2 words at a time and just split the ayah up in half like this. So now we can build each half up and follow the process. Now that we've identified all the rules, we can just build up the first half 7 times, build up the second half, read it 7 times, join them all together, read it 7 times, and then once you've done the full ayah, read from the beginning to the end 3 times. So let's do this. This would be mi nallah, minallah. Make sure you keep the noon light. So don't say minallah, minallah is wrong. It needs to be na. The noon needs to be light. Minallah, minallah, and the lam needs to be heavy. Not la. Minallah is wrong. You have to say minallahi, 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 minallahi. Okay, so once you've got that down 7 times, then start the next half. So here we're joining the dal to the lam. Dhil, ma, dhil, ma. Pronounce the ayn nice and clearly. Dhil ma'a, dhil ma'a, dhil ma'a. Now what I'm doing is I'm repeating it. I'm not starting the ra straight away. I'm repeating this a few times because sometimes, even if you read it correctly, it's a good idea to just repeat it a few times to make sure that you're confident. If you're not confident, on a particular part, then keep repeating it until you are confident. That's the whole idea of this repetition. The whole idea of this repetition is to get confident. If you read it correctly, but you didn't read it confidently, then you have to repeat it. So that's why I was just repeating dhil ma'a, because you might be struggling with the ayn. So keep repeating until you're confident. Dhil ma'a. Here we will do qalqala on the jim. Rij. Dhil ma'arij. 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 Okay, so once you've got that 7 times, then you try join both of them together. So you're going to join minallahi and dhil ma'arij all together. So and be aware that this is where the mistakes are going to happen over here. Okay, so don't stretch the ha and try not to pause between. So min Allahi dhil ma'arij, min Allahil ma'arij, min Allahi dhil ma'arij, min Allahi dhil ma'arij. Now the mistake you might make is you might accidentally stretch the ha. So you might say min Allahi dhil ma'arij. You might stretch the ha because you're joining the two sections together. Or you might pause after the ha. So you might say min Allahi dhil ma'arij. So that pause is also incorrect. Try and read it until you're fluent with the entire ayah and everything is correct, meaning you're still applying all the rules. You're still keeping this lam heavy. You're still pronouncing the ayn correctly. You're still doing the qalqal on the jim. All these rules, we always have to keep it in mind when we're reading. So read down till you're able to join both ayat, both sections of this ayah together, and until you get confidently, correctly 7 times. Once you've done that, then you're gonna again start from the beginning. And this time you're reading from the beginning up to the end of ayah number 3. Okay, and you're reading that 3 times. So until you read from ayah 1 to ayah 3 3 times, then that's when you move on to ayah number 4. So you won't move on to the next ayah until you're able to read from the beginning up to here 3 times confidently. Now, one thing that this method will do is it will ensure that whatever you read, you're going to read it correctly, because you force yourself that you can't move on. You cannot move on until you've got it perfect. You cannot move on until you've got it down. Okay. And again, the goal is not to reach the end of the page. The goal is that whatever we read it correctly. So if you follow the method, even if you only read 3 ayat and it takes you an hour to do this, even if you only do that, you can be confident that those 3 ayat, you read it perfectly with perfect tajweed, with perfect letter pronunciation, and you can be confident that there wasn't any mistakes. So this is why you have to follow the method. And one thing I want to mention is, if you follow the method, you might, start that you might spend a full hour practicing and you're only able to do 1 ayah or 1 line or 2 lines or however much. But you might start off doing only a little bit, but the more you practice, if you practice every day, the more you practice, you'll see slow increases. You'll see these slow increases. You'll see yourself getting more confident. You'll see yourself getting more confident at everything. You'll get more confident with identifying rules. You'll get more confident with applying the rules. You'll get more confident with reading difficult letters. You'll get more confident with joining up sections. You'll get confident at every aspect of your recitation, but you have to use the method. Okay, you have to use the method. And again, I'm just going to bring up my gym example. If you going to the gym and if you're working out, if you're lifting weights, you have to lift with the correct form first. This is the ultimate advice you give to everyone who is starting off working out. They will tell you that someone who is new to lifting needs to lift low weights. They cannot lift heavy. If they lift heavy, they are going to injure themselves. Okay? You can't expect someone who's new to lifting weights to lift a heavy weight and expect them to benefit from a workout like that. No, that's going to injure them and it's going to be harmful for them in the long run. Whereas if you have someone who's just starting off new and you tell them, hey, look, use these light weights, but lift it with the correct form, lift it properly, breathe properly during the exercise, make sure you're, lifting it slowly at this time, and, you're squeezing the muscle over here and this and that, and you're applying the method correctly, then you're going to see that beginner in just a matter of, maybe a month or 2 months, you'll see that his weight has increased so much, and you'll see that within a year, he's so much more confident with how he can lift weights, and he can really make progress. He's made so much progress already, and he's more confident in how he can lift. Now apply the same concept to your Quran. Make sure that you're following the method. Okay, it might feel like you're not making progress. It might feel like you're not doing enough. Okay, you might not like it at first because you're not doing, you might not feel like you're doing a lot, even if it's only 1 ayah, 2 ayah, 3 ayah, doesn't matter. At this point, the main thing is the method. The main thing is the method. You're going to have to force yourself to slow down and lift less, but you'll see that over time, over a long period of time of practice, you're adding more and more on, and eventually you're going to get to a point where it's all second nature to you, and you can just read nice and fluently, and you can apply all the tajweed, and alhamdulillah. But you have to apply the method. Okay, so please keep that in mind. So we've got about 20 minutes left. So in these 20 minutes, what I hope to do is go through the 4th ayah and explain to you 2 new rules about stopping. Okay. Now, as you can see, this 4th ayah is quite long, much more longer than these other 3 ayat. So we need to not be intimidated by it, but just make sure that we take our time with it. Okay. So first step, mark everything we can see. Okay, so we're just going to do it line by line, heavy letters first. So just a reminder, heavy letters: kha, sad, dad, ta, dha, ghain, and qaf, and the letter ra and lam in word Allah. So ta, ain, ra, jim, these are all light. Actually, no, my mistake, ra is actually heavy. So you can just see, even me, I can make mistakes too. So you have to make sure you be careful. Yeah, so ra, always be careful with the letter ra. So this ra is actually heavy because it's got dhamma on it. Carrying on, we have the letter lam, mim, lam, hamza, kaf, ta. These are all light. Waw, ra. This ra is heavy because it's got dhamma on it. Waw, ha, all light. Alif, lam, ya, ha, all light. Fa, ya, waw, mim, these are all light. Kaf, noon, these are light. Mim, qaf, the qaf is heavy. Dal, ra, this ra is going to be heavy because it's got a dhamma. And the ha is light. Now the last line, we have this kha is heavy. Mim, sin, ya, noon, alif, lam, fa, sin, noon, ta. These are all light. So we've ticked off the heavy letters. Now stretch letters. Whatever is stretched, we have to mark it. So nothing is stretched here. Here we have a lam that is a standing fatha, and it's a mud stretch. So you're going to times it by 3 because of the mud. Yeah. So you're going to times this stretch by 3. Then we have a dhamma before waw sakin on this ra. So this ra will be stretched. Carrying on, we have this fa is a kasra before ya sakin. It might not look like it, but it's a kasra before ya sakin. That's a ya there, it's got sakin. Carrying on, we have a fatha before alif on this kaf. We have a fatha before alif on the dal. We have an upside down dhamma on the ha. And on the last line, we have kasra before ya sakin on the sin. And that's about it. So we've done the stretch letters now. Okay. So you might not be able to do it that quickly. It might take you a bit longer, but just take your time on each word. Just look at it word by word. Look at this word first. See, is there anything stretched? No. Move on to the next word. Once you've done that word, then do the next word, then do the next word, and so on. So you don't need to look at the whole line and think, okay, just scan the entire line. No, do it systematically. Take it one by one word at a time. That's how I'm doing it. With the heavy letters, I'm taking it one word at a time. Stretch letters, one word at a time. You have to do it systematically. If you're doing it, erratically with no kind of system in place, you will miss something. You might make a mistake. So to avoid mistake, just take your time with it. Next thing, anything joined. So we have this ta joined to the ain. Now we have to be careful here. This jim is actually joined to the lam here. This lam's got a sakin. So there's no easy way to mark it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a line like this, just to indicate that this jim is actually joined to the next letter on this line. You can do so just note that this jim is not ta'ruju, it's jul. You're joining it to the lam. Carrying on, we have this waw joined to the ra. I'm not marking the dhamma before waw sakin or the kasra before ya sakins because we've already marked it with the line underneath. That's why I'm not marking them. We have this lam joined to the ya joined to the waw, mim joined to the qaf, kha joined to the mim, alif joined to the lam. Now we come on to this new stopping rule. Okay, so here is a new stopping rule that I wanted to mention today. So the stopping rule is whenever we stop on a small ta, we turn the ta into a small ha and turn the vowel into a sakin. Okay, so this one is a little bit more complicated than the first, but what we're doing is we're turning the small ta into a small ha. So if I go back to something really, really old, let me just get it out. This is going to be a blast from the past, guys. Let me just get it out. Okay, so I hope everyone can see that. So if we go back to our booklet that we were using to learn, if we go to the lesson with the tanween, this was really, really quite a long time ago. Where is it? There it is. So if you go back to the lesson with the tanween, you can remember that there were two types of tas. And I mentioned that don't worry about it for now. It's going to come into play later. Well, it's now later, so it's coming into play now. Okay, so we have two types of tas. You got this big ta here, and you got this small ta here. So this stopping rule is for the small ta. Okay, so for this one, and this one. Whenever you see a small ta that looks like this, okay, so here we see the small ta. It's like it's got like a kind of like a circle in a way. It's got a circle there. The big ta, it won't really have the circle, okay, but the small ta is kind of like a little circle. So whenever you see that small ta, you're going to turn it into a small ha. What do I mean by small ha? The bottom of the throat. Okay, so I'm talking about this ha here. Okay, so we're turning it into a small ha. So don't do this on your Quran, don't do this, but I'm just going to cross these two dots out here. So if you can see now, it looks like a ha, and we're going to turn it into a sakin. So this double vowel underneath it is going to be a sakin. Okay, so we know sanatin with ta into a ha and the double vowel into a sakin. So it's going to be sanah, sanah. Okay, so that rule might sound a bit confusing. So I just want to know who's confused right now. If you understand this stopping rule, a 1. It's a bit confusing and you don't understand it, a 5, inshallah. Okay, inshallah, I'll explain again. So the rule is, okay, alhamdulillah. So the rule is, whenever we see a small ta, so the ta that looks like this, okay, not the ta that looks like this. The ta that looks like this, not this one. The ta that looks like this. So you'll see in your Quran these tas are scattered about. So whenever we see a ta that looks like this and we stop on it, what we're going to do is we're going to turn it into a small ha. Okay, so I'm not talking about the big ha, talking about the small ha that comes from the bottom of the throat. And if you look carefully, they look very similar. They just basically the ha doesn't have the dots on it, and the small ta has got the dots on it. So you're going to turn it into a small ha with a sakin, regardless of the vowel. If it's a fatha, kasra, dhamma, any vowel that's on it, doesn't matter, you're still going to turn into a sakin. So the first stopping rule applies here. The first stopping rule was whenever we stop on a word, we turn the vowel into a sakin. So this is still here. Let me just highlight it. Okay, that's the same. That part is the same. So that's just an extension of rule 1. The main thing that is different is this part here. Okay, that's the difference. So that's the only new thing that we're doing. So we're turning the ta into a ha. Okay, so how would this sound? So I'm just going to skip the all of this beginning part, and I'm just focusing on I'm just going to focus on this last bit here. Okay, so how would this last part sound? Well, it's going to be like this. So we will read al fa, al fa sa, al fa sa nah, al fa sa nah. So you're pronouncing the ha, not a ta. The sakin rule is the same. So we're still turning into a sakin. But the only difference is we're turning the ta into a ha. So it's now al fa sa nah. Instead of reading al fa sa nat, we're not reading al fa sa nat, we're reading al fa sa nah. Okay. So does it make sense now? So it doesn't. Yes, so it doesn't need to be a tanween, regardless of the vowel. If it's a small ta, it will always turn into a sakin. Okay, you're gonna see tomorrow. We're gonna learn a new rule, and the new rule we'll learn tomorrow does not apply to the small ta. The small ta will always turn into a sakin. Okay, so you will always, even regardless of the vowel, if it's fatha, kasra, dhamma, a double vowel, doesn't matter. If it's a small ta, it will always turn into a sakin. Okay, so this is al-fasana. So hope that makes a bit more sense now, inshallah. So we've got about 7 minutes left. So what we can do is we can go through this ayah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down, and I'm going to read it bit by bit. But your homework for today, I'm just going to mention it now. Your homework for today will be to practice as much as you can from the beginning up to here. Okay, so up to here. Obviously, I mentioned that the goal is not to reach the end of the page. So the goal is not to finish up to here. The goal is to read as much as you can up to here. So if you can reach up to ayah 4 for your homework, then alhamdulillah. But if with your practice you're only able to reach ayah 3, then read to me in your voice note from ayah 1 to ayah 3. Yeah, the goal is whatever you do read, you're confident with it. So that's going to be the homework for today, just letting you know in advance. So let's break this up into readable chunks. So first chunk, 2 words here. Second chunk here. Third one here. Fourth one here. And the fifth one here. Okay, so this is now become an ayah made up of 5 chunks. So it's a ayah, and it's now 5 chunks. So we still have to apply everything. Okay. And to be honest, we've only gone through 2 of the rules. We haven't gone through any of the rules. So let's continue going through these rules. So we've gone through the joinings now. Now that we've done this new stopping rule, now let's do qalqalas. Okay, qalqalas. So actually, I'm just going to rub out these red lines. We'll do them later. So qalqalas now. Anything that's joined, is it a qalqala as well? This is a ayn, not qalqala. Lam is not qalqala. This is a shadda. This is a ya. This is a waw. Qaf. Qaf is a letter of qalqala. So we will apply qalqala on the qaf. Okay, so you put a little q underneath it. Mim is not qalqala. Lam is not qalqala. And ha is not qalqala. So only one qalqala from all of these joinings. Okay. Now we look for ghunnas. Any noon or mim with a shadda on it. Well, I can't see any. There's one shadda here on the ra, but that's not mim or noon. and that's about it. So there aren't any ghunnas, we've done ghunnas. Noon sakin tanween rules. So are there any noon sakin or tanween? So nothing here, nothing here, nothing here, nothing here. We have a tanween on the meme. So we have a tanween on the meme, min. So we need to decide what rule we're going to apply. So to do that, we have to look at the next letter. So the next letter is kaf. So what rule are we going to apply if it's kaf? In the chat, what rule are we going to apply? Which of the noon sakin tanween rules will we apply on this tanween here? Good, good, alhamdulillah. So the ones who said ikhfa, you are correct. It's not going to be iqlab because iqlab is the letter ba. Whenever we see the letter ba after, then we will do iqlab. We change it into a meme sound. It's not going to be izhar because kaf is not a letter of the throat. And it's not going to be idgham because idgham, the letters of idgham are ya, waw, mim, noon, ra, and lam. Okay, it's going to be ikhfa. So we're going to apply a light nasal sound on the meme. Okay, we're applying a light nasal sound on the meme here. Carrying on, are there any more noon sakin or tanweens? There's a tanween over here, but we've just mentioned from the last ayah that is now a sakin, so we don't need to apply the rule. So that's it. Meme sakin, are there any meme sakins in this ayah? Nothing here, nothing here, nothing here. We have a meme sakin here. So the rule of the meme sakin was whenever we see a ba or a meme after the meme sakin, then we're going to apply a ghunna. But here we see that the letter sin is after, so we don't need to worry about it. And there's no more meme sakins. So that's about it. And difficult letters. Whatever letter you find difficult in the entire ayah, mark it. So if you find ayn and ha difficult, so I'm just going to do this with a yellow. Actually, I'll do green. Just to show that this will be different for each person. But let's say you find ayn and ha difficult. So there's a ayn here. There's a ha here. Okay. And that's about it. Yeah. So you can mark those. Whatever, if you find qaf difficult, mark qaf as well. Any letter you find difficult, mark it. Now that we've marked everything, we break it down. And I did it just earlier. So you can break it down like this. So 5 chunks. Okay. And then you're going to just practice reading it. Now, we've got 5 minutes left. So what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to read each part. That's for you guys to practice. So I want everyone to practice this, inshallah, tonight, tomorrow. Make sure you practice it. Now, I wanted to mention one more thing about stopping. Okay, so I did say that I was going to mention 2 rules about stopping. So the stopping rule is whenever we stop so far what we know is whenever we stop on a word, turn the last vowel on the last letter into a sakin. And if it's a small ta, you turn it into a small ha. So that's what we know so far. Now, how about stopping in the middle of an ayah? Let's say you don't have the breath to read the entire ayah in one go. I'm just going to rub out these red marks. Let's say you don't have, so this is a long ayah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read it. I'm going to take a big breath and I'm going to read it. So, تعرج الملائكة والروح إليه في يوم كان مقداره 50,000 سنة. Now, let's say you don't have enough breath to do that. I took a really, really big breath, so I was able to do it. Let's say you run out of breath in the middle of an ayah. How do you deal with it? Well, there is a correct way of stopping. The incorrect way is just stopping anyhow and carrying on anyhow. But we're not going to do things the incorrect way. We're going to do things the correct way. And the correct way of stopping, wherever you run out of breath, you have to apply the stopping rule. So let's say, for example, you run out of breath on this word here. So let's say you run out of breath on here. So how would you stop? You would apply the stopping rule, meaning turn the vowel into a sakin. So we would turn this he into a sakin. Then you would repeat that word and carry on. So how does this look in practice? Now pay attention. I'm going to apply the stopping rule over here. I'm just going to pretend I run out of breath here. Then I'm going to repeat the word and carry on. So this is how you would stop if you were to run out of breath on this word. You do it like this. تعرج الملائكة والروح إليه في يوم كان, and so on. So if you run out of breath, you have to apply the stopping rules on that word. You don't read. So this is what not to do. Don't do this. Don't do تعرج الملائكة والروح إليه في يوم. Don't do that. Don't just stop on the word, read it, and then carry on. That's incorrect. You want to stop on the word correctly, meaning apply the stopping rule, repeat that word, and carry on. Okay? How would you stop if I run out of breath over here? Well, what I would do is I would turn this meme into a sakin. Then I would repeat this and then carry on. So it would be تعرج الملائكة والروح إليه في يوم. See, I stopped on the meme. في يوم. And then you repeat and carry on. في يوم كان مقداره 50,000 سنة. So this is a long ayah. Now, if you want to stop twice, that's fine too. So let's say I wanted to stop. Let's say I run out of breath over here, and I run out of breath here. Okay, so you just do the same thing. You just apply the stopping rule twice. So we're gonna turn that dhamma into a sakin, and this upside down dhamma into a sakin. So we're gonna read تعرج الملائكة والروح إليه في يوم كان مقداره 50,000 سنة. Okay, so does that make sense? Does how to stop in the middle of an ayah? Does it make sense? A 1 if it makes sense, a 5 if you're confused, and if it doesn't make sense. How to stop in the middle of an ayah? Okay.
Yeah, just a quick question, brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
You know, when you stopped fi yawm,
Yep.
and then you started with fi yawmin and carried on, do you have
Yep.
to include fi, or can you start with yawmin and then carry
on? It would be better to start with fi. It would be better to start with fi. That's more to do with like the meaning. So there are certain times. So there are certain times where it's better to read from a few words behind. So you know how I stopped over here on ilay. It would be better to read warruhu ilay. So it would be better to read from a word behind. So to do with the meaning of the Quran, sometimes it's better to repeat like a few words behind. But for now, at this stage, don't worry about it. Just repeat the same word. But once,
Thank you.
inshallah, in the future, if you advance Quran and you kind of understand the meaning as well, then inshallah, then you'll know a bit more of how to which words to repeat, which words not to. Inshallah, you'll know a bit more about where to start from in the middle of an ayah. Yeah? But for now, don't worry about it. Fi yawm or just yawmin is going to be fun. Yeah. So that's this lesson. We went through again a lot today. Alhamdulillah. We've gone over a new stopping rule when we stop on a small ta turn into small ha, and we've gone over how to stop in the middle of an ayah, and I explained as well the method of carrying on. So once you do the second ayah, you have to read from the beginning again, and you have to keep repeating it from the beginning until you can do from ayah 1 to wherever you stop 3 times in a row. So the homework for tonight is going to be read from ayah number 1 sa'ala sa'ilun, up to ayah number 4. So I want everyone to practice. So yesterday, inshallah, hopefully everyone got practice up to here. So practice as much as you can from lil kafirina up to over here. Make sure you follow the method. So break it down. Make sure you follow the method, and especially on this long ayah, make sure you follow the method. So let's say over here, I know we're going a bit over time, just 2 more minutes, inshallah, and then we'll be finished. So if you're breaking up like this, you read ta'rujul malaikatu until you read it correctly 7 times. Then you do warruhu ilayhi until you got that 7 times. Then you do from ta'rujul malaikatu up to warruhu ilayhi 7 times. Then the next part, fi yawmin kana 7 times. Then from the beginning, ta'rujul malaikatu up to fi yawmin kana 7 times. Then miqdaruhu khamsina 7 times, and so on. So each time you do a new chunk, go back to the beginning. And once you've done the full ayah, 7 times confidently, you have to go back to the beginning, and then that's going to be your homework, inshallah. So it might take a while, but this practice is definitely worth it. You're going to see a lot of results. You're going to see a lot of progress, inshallah, if you follow the method and if you put the time into practice. So make sure everyone, inshallah, puts the time into practice tonight, tomorrow as well, and send me a voice note, inshallah, of you reading the surah. Make sure on your Qur'ans, I know I'm going a little bit over time, please just bear with me. Make sure on your Qur'ans that you are marking it. Mark it with a pencil on your Qur'an. It's not disrespectful and it's not rude to make marking on your Quran if it's there to help you. If it's there to help you to read it correctly, it's not rude and it's not offensive and it's not bad at all. If you're just marking for the sake of marking anything, then that's something that you want to avoid. That is quite disrespectful. But if the marking is there to assist you, to help you to learn, to help you to read it properly, then that's completely fine, and use a pencil, and I 100% encourage it. That's why I've been going over all of these. Now that you've got your Qur'ans, make sure you use a pencil to mark all the Tajweed rules, inshallah. And with that, I'll end this lesson, inshallah. If anyone's got any questions at all about anything, do feel free to send me a message on WhatsApp, inshallah. I'll see everyone tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.